I do profusely thank you, and this is a statement that I signed on the 30th of September 2021. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
As the chairman, Departmental Committee on Labor, I thought I saw him around. You know, Chairman, when you come and walk away before we have gotten to this level of request for statement, you know, you make it look very... No, the Honorable Sankok, you know, if you're the chairman, does he have a vice chair? Are you the vice chair? No, he is not chair of anything. Unless he is chairing some caucus. Well, the request should be channeled through the office of the leader of the majority party. No, Honorable Sankok, you cannot assume that role. Are you a member of the committee? But even, are you suggesting you want to give an undertaking? But if you give and it doesn't work, no, chairmen are paid responsibility allowance. You are not paid. So,
me. No, yes, Honorable Speaker. I'm a chair of something because I'm the chair of East African Council for Persons with Disability. Now, the chairman of Labor and Social Welfare left specific instruction to me that I should be on the lookout for any business that will come to our committee so that I can give on his undertaking on his behalf, for which Honorable Chair, with due respect, I will actually give because they are absent. They have just stepped out, but will come back. But I think within 2 weeks, we will be able to give a response to Honorable Kiari and Dagoretti South, who have raised a very pertinent issue of child labor. All of us have children at home. We don't want them to be subjected into child labor.
You know, you are giving another thinking. Now, you are engaging in another debate.
No, we'll give I'm giving an undertaking within 2 weeks.
Very well, very well. Honorable Kiari, within 2 weeks, you must hold the Honorable Sankok to account. This is a response to a request for a statement by the Honorable Patrick Macau, and the response is from the Chairman, Environment and Natural Resources Committee. The Honorable Karek Mbiuki.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm back to give the response to the statement by the Honorable Patrick Macau, MP, on the sewage spillage and poor drainage on Syokimau area, occasioned by the ongoing expressway project. Mr. Speaker, the committee engaged the Minister of Water and Sanitation and delegation on the above concerns raised by Honorable Macau, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish to respond to the issues as follows. Mr. Speaker, it is true that the ongoing construction of Nairobi Expressway has resulted in numerous inconveniences to the residents and business communities living and operating along the corridor. Mr. Speaker, the Nairobi Expressway project is being undertaken by the Minister of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development through Kenya. It is a 27-kilometer road project beginning from Lolongo in Machakos County, passing through Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Nairobi Simbindi, and ending in James Gisholo Road in Westlands, Nairobi County. Mr. Speaker, the project includes a component of relocation of existing water utility services serving Nairobi and Machakos County, including water and sewage infrastructure. The work entails the relocation of 85 kilometers water line, 25 kilometers sewer lines, and other accessory works. The works commenced on 27th March 2020 with an implementation period of 18 months, and Mr. Speaker, was expected to be completed on 27th of September 2021, though, Mr. Speaker, the contractor sought extension up to January 2022. Mr. Speaker, on the measures being put in place to avert impending environmental and health hazard occasioned by the low sewage spillage in the said area. Mr. Speaker, on 16 July 2021, the road contractor were undertaking road works along the section on Mombasa Road, dumped some grain materials along the section, in the process blocking 4 manholes. The existing road drainage at the section was also damaged. In the absence of the alternative road drainage path, both storm and sewage are ponding at the lowest area upstream of the affected section, including Palm Building, Lone View Estate, Eran Park, Kappa Industries, and Little Bees Kindergarten and Primary School. Mr. Speaker, in order to avert environmental and health hazard, especially on the pupils of the school, and the decision to close down the school and relocate the pupils was taken on Wednesday, 4th August 2021. This is because all surface water and sewage spillage were ponding at the school, and the drainage was not working properly then. Mr. Speaker, on 6th August 2021, the contractor was instructed to urgently provide 400 meters diversion pipeline along the problem stretch to drain the waste from the school. Mr. Speaker, work commenced on 12th August 2021, and Mr. Speaker, the information which I've received was that the school had been fully cleaned up, fumigated by Kenya, and the learning is expected to resume next week. Mr. Speaker, further Mavoko Water and Sewerage Company, the service provider in Syokimau area, has undertaken measures to redirect the sewerage flow to the existing manholes and is going on with the cleaning of all the manholes filled up with excavated soil and other debris. This has allowed the sewage and in other adjoining areas to flow back into the existing sewer line. The company has also undertaken to disinfect the premises affected by the sewer backflow to private premises such as the Little Bees, Best Homes, and other facilities along that corridor. Mr. Speaker, a more permanent preventive measure would entail proper planning for the restoration of utilities in a coordinated approach. The Ministry of Water and Sanitation is therefore keen on ensuring this approach is adapted in order to forestall inconveniences that would otherwise be avoided. This is being done through the frequent and effective coordination meetings between the implementing agencies, service providers, and contractors. Mr. Speaker, on measures that are in place to prevent sewer lines and other road infrastructure that will ensure proper drainage of the low sewer waste along the diversion and in particular Syokimau area. Mr. Speaker, proper management of sewerage and other water infrastructure along the road corridor, including Syokimau area during the construction of expressway, will be achieved through collaborative and coordinated action between the project implementing agencies, the water service providers, the contractor, as well as the contractor. Previously, Mr. Speaker, a lot of damage to relocated and existing water and sewage pipeline was rampant. However, due to the intervention by the National Development Implementing Technical Committee, the cases have reduced, but more need to be done by the contractor to ensure necessary damage to utilities is avoided. Mr. Speaker, on the urgent steps that the contractor is taking to stop the spillage and ensure the removal of sewer waste from the said school ground, among other areas, to avert further damage, Mr. Speaker, once the diversion pipeline is completed, the sewage spillage at the school will be drained into the main sewer line. Meanwhile, a relief trench has been constructed to evacuate the flooded water waste into the nearest functional manhole. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I wish to inform the House that the committee, within 2 days after the petition was tabled in this House, on August 17, 2021, the committee interacted with the affected persons, the area assistant county commissioner, the area member of parliament, Honorable Patrick Macau, and officers from the Water Resource Authority, as well as Earthworks Development Agency. At the end of the site meeting, Mr. Speaker, it was resolved as follows: that within 3 weeks, the section of sewer line that was destroyed should have been fixed, and Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm the same has already been done. 2, to ensure the scenarios was not repeated in the ongoing road works at the expressway, the road contractor and the road contractor is engaged in location of the infrastructure. So the henceforth work in tandem and should have weekly meetings to plan their operation. Finally, Mr. Speaker, add Water and Works Environment Agency and the affected locals, including the proprietor of the Little Bees Kindergarten and Primary School and the owner of the school buildings, would negotiate compensation mechanism and immediate action to address the sanitation under the Office of the Area Deputy County Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I submit and wish to inform the House that the same response has been given to the area member of Parliament. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Macau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the committee for that little work they've done. Mr. Speaker, I want to be honest. In this House, there are living witnesses that what he has laid here is not what is happening on the ground. Mr. Speaker, I agree with him. He has gotten information from other quarters. But I'm sure the last time they visited that area was that time. They have never gone back or used the same agencies to go and see what is happening. Mr. Speaker, if you live in Syokimau, you'll be forced to go back to Mulolongo and come back up. They have never done those diversions. The diversions which are there are not even watered as it's supposed to be. And Mr. Speaker, there is a school called Little Bees where they had opened the sewer systems and those pupils could not access school. That school lost income for about 2 months. They have done nothing, Mr. Speaker. Even the way they are creating those, the sewer system is so slow, Mr. Speaker. When he mentions Mavoko Water is a profit-making company. There is no way they are going to give money if they are not paid by Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, in fact, I'm very annoyed and disappointed by the contractor. He's so arrogant, I can't understand where he gets his arrogance from, unless from Kenya itself. You cannot divert water and not divert people. You cannot, you know, the traffic on Mombasa Road, Mr. Speaker, you cannot have 3 meters, and there are buses, there are trucks, there are many cars. Even the jam, Mr. Speaker, has just reduced a bit. If they can go a step ahead and ensure that Kenya talk to the contractor, these Chinese are people you can talk to. And if they are given, if they are threatened, Mr. Speaker, they will put diversions which can carry about 3 lanes, going down and coming up. So, Honorable Kareke Buki, I respect you so much. I know you are a ranking member in this House. I think you should do more. Invite the Kenya and the contractor. Please, most of these members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, live in Syokimau, and they know what I'm talking about. They stay here until 10 o'clock so that they can go home. So, Mr. Speaker, that report is 20% implemented. So how I wish they can go back. But at least the jam was relieved a bit. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me this chance. And I thank the committee, too, for bringing the answer within accepted timelines. Thank you.
But of course, you are still at liberty to raise further questions should the situation persist. So that, because you sought a statement which has been given, so now that matter is over. We can raise now an issue of a question. If you are,
so that's the end.
now, you know,
That's the end.
but we cannot, that's not the only business before the committee. You know,
Mr. Speaker, I was...
you know, you choose the way to prosecute the matter. If you choose that particular way, you get a statement. In fact, you can ask the Honorable Duale, in another jurisdiction, similar to this one, a cabinet minister merely appears with a statement which is prepared, reads it, and places it on the table, and the matter ends there. No supplementary questions. So you know, you choose this way. Now that matter is over. But you can, you know, that's why I give you some chance to lament a bit, and then, so that your people can hear that you are also crying like them.
Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding, I said to the committee, if they can go ahead and help me, talk to Kenya. Because, Mr. Speaker, the buck stops at Kenya. They are the clients.
Are you requesting another statement?
I'm requesting that the committee go ahead and invite Kenya again to clarify this statement.
If you ask a question, Honorable Macau, and you say that the answer which was given is not satisfactory, then the committee can invite all those people again. But this is a request for a statement. It cannot be, I mean, you cannot just be, a member for Yata, you know how to rise on a point of order. It's not, no, I don't know why you are standing. If you needed to rise on a point of order, I'm sure I would be seeing your name here. Now that I'm not seeing you, it means you are not, you're operating outside the...
Mr. Speaker, is the use of that road, so I'm sure he's standing to support what I'm saying.
It doesn't
or maybe
matter.
You want to hard meat on it.
It doesn't matter. If he wanted to say something, to lament like yourself, no, please do it there in a public rally.
No, it's best done here, Mr. Speaker.
But what? There is no answer.
It is an answer, Mr.
According to the response given by the Honorable Mbiuki, those matters have been addressed and they are going to be addressed. And so him is okay. You may rise as you have done, Honorable Macau, and claim that the committee has not given you the 100% response.
Yes.
But according to what they did that time, that's a response available. Surely, unless the committee has other things, unless the committee wants to go now on a wild goose chase, to just go and enjoy themselves, there's nothing. There's no other request before them.
Mr. Speaker, I stand guided, but I must also confirm to this House that after the committee visited there, you remember the previous night, residents had slept on the road. At least.
No, I don't remember because I don't sleep there.
It was all over.
No, if it was all over, it was not here in the chamber.
Oh.
You, Honorable Macau, you are the one who should have brought it to the House. Yeah?
I did it, but anyway, I stand guided, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
No, not about people who use the road. Now you see you have learned how to use the intervention button.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the matter I want to raise requires your directions and perhaps a ruling. Mr. Speaker, the traditions of Parliament worldwide, and more so Commonwealth, ministers in the House cannot ask questions. Questions are left for backbench. Under the old constitution, likewise in Kenya, ministers could not ask questions. Under the new constitutions, chairs of committee represent the executive in the House, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to get from you is it looks totally out of order for chairs to ask statements and to ask questions in the House and expect them to be answered by the same government which they are fronting in the House, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, at this rate, even Leader of Majority Amos Kimunya is going to file a question and ask a statement. So the kind of ruling, Mr. Speaker, which I'm seeking from your chair, is that chairs of committee who have been nominated by the executive or appointed by, elected to represent the executive should and cannot come and ask questions here. The case with Honorable Macau falls in the same category. Being the chair of a sports committee, he has no business coming to ask questions here. And Mr. Speaker, the man says he's a minister out there, but when he comes to the House, he's asking questions. So, Mr. Speaker, what we are looking from your direction from your chair is chairs of committee and people holding leadership in the House representing the government should and must not ask questions in the House, which has been the practice within Commonwealth, something which, Mr. Speaker, you know, I seek your direction.
Well, fortunately, because we were involved in trying to help the House resolve this problem, as you would recall, Honorable Charles Kilonzo, at the tail end of the 10th Parliament, the standing orders were revised. And at that time, the provision was that a member will stand and ask questions to a chairman of a committee, or the people you call chairpersons. Yeah. Now, we found that it was an extremely difficult situation, that you would rise in your place there, ask the Honorable Kareke Mbiuki a question, and expect him to give you an answer, and you are saying that something, like that one now about, is it sewage? He may have absolutely no idea where that sewer line is. Or another one rises in their place and asks about some banditry attacks in such like places, yes, in a Kapendo. And the chairman of the committee, the Honorable Mwadhi from Lemuru, has to first of all now look at the Google map to know where Kapendo is. So obviously we found ourselves in a very awkward situation. And sometimes also, just like these statements, when they are brought, the chairperson really is not the owner of the statement. In fact, I think we should congratulate the Honorable Kareke Mbiuki, because at least he summoned people so as to go and understand, not just receive the information from the ministry. So this was just a way of trying to create some balance. And that's why we came up with a provision. But some of you did not agree with it. We created a committee on general oversight. It was expected that if that committee was operationalized, and the Honorable Dwelle is aware of that, and I think several of you, if it was operationalized, then questions would be answered by cabinet secretaries coming to the hallowed floor of the House, but sitting in committee, not sitting as a House in plenary. But the expectation was that then cabinet secretaries who had questions to respond to would be here, so that we help one another. In fact, even the country would know what it is those cabinet secretaries are doing. But of course, some people did not quite agree with us. Some advisors, constitutional, they were called constitutional advisors. Now, so that thing was not operationalized because they argued about separation of powers. So we still had to look for another middle ground, which is why we came up with a system where questions are asked, read out here in the open, in the plenary, so that at least your constituents know that you are not asleep. They can hear you reading out the question, but we refer it to the committee. Unfortunately, we don't have sufficient TV and radio coverage when cabinet secretaries are appearing before the respective committees to answer to questions. But at least every Thursday afternoon, the leader majority will read out and indicate which cabinet secretaries are going to appear before which committees and to respond to which questions. So at least there's a kind of a follow-up mechanism. But with regard to statements, when they are requested, unless you get a chair of a committee as active as the Honorable Mwadhi, the Honorable Kareke Mbiuki, and a few others, and the chair of lands, Honorable Rachel Nyamai, Honorable Kosing, who will then summon the cabinet secretaries and then inform the member seeking the statement to be present to hear what kind of response is being given, so that whatever interrogation that may be required, it is done at that point. So, because Honorable Charles Kilonzo, you are aware, you adopted the presidential system without any serious understanding about, not you, Honorable Charles Kilonzo, but Kenyans, because one must ask themselves, why did the Americans adopt a presidential system? Historically, they wanted to make a break with the king totally, completely away to do away. They didn't want anything. A parliamentary system where the government is also in the house. So Americans wanted to do a total break. But here Kenyans got excited and they thought they wanted to also do a total break, while still we require members of parliament to rise in here and ask questions, but the ministers are not here, so we have that kind of difficulty. So, Honorable Charles Kilonzo, because the Honorable Macau and other chairpersons also represent constituencies, and they don't sit in cabinet, you know, if there are ministers sitting in cabinet, you know, then they can say they cannot come to ask questions here on the floor of the House because they can resolve that matter at cabinet meetings with their cabinet colleagues. But now the chairpersons, including the leader of majority, he represents a constituency. He doesn't sit in the cabinet. So if there's an issue touching on water or schools in his constituency, he has a right in his representative role to ask it here because this is where he sits. So surely that does not block the chairman from asking questions while representing their constituents. So, Honorable Kilonzo, I'm not aware that the Honorable Macau introduces himself out in the village as a minister. Now, that is something that I think he can deal with out there. But of course, he looks like he could be a minister. Honorable Macau, you want to say you don't do that?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, that was a prolonged explanation that you gave to Honorable Kilonzo. I don't know whether you are referring to old dogs, land hard. But Mr. Speaker, you know, Honorable Kilonzo was here in the 10th Parliament, where the President was seated there, being the MP of Odaya and the President of Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, you've explained it so well that as a chairman here, I still represent the people of Mavoko. And I don't remember myself, Mr. Speaker, calling myself a minister, but I am a chairman of a committee who reports to the minister of the ministers that are under my purview. So, Honorable Kaleke, if he has any question on sports, culture, and tourism, obviously, you refer it to us, and we'll do the due diligence so that we can bring it here. So, Mr. Speaker, if you know what Kilonzo is saying, maybe I know he wants to run for governor, and it's a wishful thinking because he already knows that I'm the governor of Machakos 2022. Maybe he's looking for a way to bring me down, but it is true. Maybe that minister is thinking about, I'm going to be the governor of Machakos County, God willing. Thank you very much.
Very well, but don't answer to the cabinet secretary. Oversight him or her. The next response is from the chairman, Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, to a request by the Honorable Dr. Ojiambo Udo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the member for Parliament for Funyula constituency, Honorable Dr. Ojiambo Udo, MP, sought for a statement from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government on the status of drug abuse, treatment, and rehabilitation in the country. In particular, the member sought to be informed on the following. One, provision of information on the progress made by NACADA with regard to alcohol and drug abuse in the country. And two, the amount of funds that has been allocated to NACADA for the last 20 years of its existence and how it has been utilized, particularly on treatment and rehabilitation of alcohol and drug abuse victims. Number three, how many people affected by alcohol and drug abuse has NACADA helped to access treatment and rehabilitation centers? Number four, and the last one, clarification on whether NACADA has the power to establish a treatment and rehabilitation center to be run by a multidisciplinary expert team. Honorable Speaker, the response is as follows. The National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse, that's NACADA, is established under National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse Act number 14 of 2012. However, even before this, the authority had been in existence under the legal framework as follows. One, between the years 2002 to 2007, NACADA operated as a department within the Office of the President. During this period, its operation and budgetary mandate were under the direction of Permanent Secretary in the ministry. 2, in 2007, NACADA was incorporated as a state corporation under the State Corporation Act, vide legal notice number 140 of 2007. Under this legal instrument, the authority's mandate is in regard to treatment and rehabilitation, and which was mainly advisory. In 2010, the Alcohol and Drinks Control Act number 4 of 2010 was enacted, establishing an overarching legal framework that provided a multi-agency arrangement for the control of alcoholic drinks in the country. Various regulatory, administrative, as well as enforcement roles were assigned to several state agencies. NACADA was designated thereby as the relevant agency. Its mandate with regard to the treatment and rehabilitation still remained largely providing advice to the Cabinet Secretary in the matters of treatment and rehabilitation. In 2012, the NACADA Act was enacted that reconfigured the mandate and legal competence of NACADA. It is under the NACADA Act 2012 that the authority gained an express mandate to undertake various programmatic functions towards the campaign against alcohol and drug abuse. Under the law, with respect to treatment and rehabilitation, the authority has the following mandate. 1, under Section 5E, provide and facilitate the development and operation of rehabilitation facilities, programs, and standards for persons suffering from substance use disorders. Under Section 5F, subject to any other written law, license and regulate the operations of rehabilitation facilities for persons suffering from substance use disorders. Honorable Speaker, NACADA has the obligation under the provisions of Section 5J of NACADA Act 2012, in quotes 2, in collaboration with other lead agencies, prepare, publish, and submit an alcohol and drug abuse control status report biannually to both houses of parliament through the cabinet secretary, close quotes. In the discharge of this obligation, the authority has over the years submitted various reports to this house to date. Annexure A contains a compendium of biannual reports from 2012 to date, which I have here and which is part of the annexure table. Honorable Speaker, the authority acquired an express functional mandate on treatment and rehabilitation in the year 2012. Since then, NACADA has spent resources on various facilities and programs targeted at treatment and rehabilitation of substance use disorders as outlined below. A, budgetary allocation to treatment and rehabilitation of substance use disorders. Under this, NACADA has allocated and spent about Kenya shillings 190,573,761 in treatment and rehabilitation over the years. Below and attached here is a table presenting the budgetary allocation that NACADA has committed to treatment and rehabilitation of substance use disorders over the years, and the table is annexed here too. Under Roman 2, these are the funds which have been disbursed to NGOs and civil societies through Ernst & Young to fight alcohol and drug abuse, and which are in 3 tranches, and whereby the first tranche on the date of 20th April 2013, some 24,750,000 was disbursed. And the second tranche disbursed on 28th June 2013 was 48,032,041 shillings. The third tranche and the final one on 9th of April 2014, some 22,129,520.50 was disbursed, which then totals to 94,000,000 911,561.50. Roman 3, the funds that were spent directly on treatment and rehabilitation of individual persons was 5,662,200 shillings. B, the county-based treatment and rehabilitation facilities. The authority has since 2015 been allocated and spent a sum in excess of 90 million in the development and support to county governments in the development and operationalization of treatment and rehabilitation facilities. The counties which these facilities have been developed include, and a table is given here, Kisumu County at Kondiaga Prison, in Kisii County at Kiamwasi Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, at Elgeyo Marakwet County, Iten County Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, in Taita Taveta County at Wesu Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, in Kwale County at Kombani Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, in Mombasa County at the Coast General Hospital, in Bomet County, Koiwa Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, in Nakuru County, Presbyterian Care Center, in Yasingishu County, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, in Kakamega County at the Kakamega County Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, in Lamu County, Red Cross Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, and finally in Nyeri County at Ihororo Treatment and Rehabilitation Center. C is the facility called Miritini Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, which is based in Mombasa. This is a national facility that has been under the establishment in the last 2 years. The project provides a holistic approach to treatment and rehabilitation of alcohol and drug abuse. Services include prevention, and that is advocacy, treatment, psychiatric and medical services, HIV testing services, hepatitis B testing services, cancer.
It's taken inordinately too long. Can you finish in 3 minutes?
Yes, I could, but that he had really asked for a very detailed account, and that's what.
But he has a statement. Yeah, so you can just highlight salient features so that.
Very well.
Yeah.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So, in summary, that is Miritini Treatment and Rehabilitation Center. This is a national facility that has been under the establishment in the last 2 years. And the project provides a holistic approach to treatment and rehabilitation of alcohol and drug abuse. The project is implemented by a multi-sectoral technical committee coordinated by NACADA. Members of the committee include State Department of Interior, County Government of Mombasa, Ministry of Health, Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, Prison, Pharmacy and Poisons Board, Youth Enterprise Fund, and Kenya Red Cross. Mr. Speaker, NACADA has various programs through which it discharges its mandate. These programs are both standalone and combined either within NACADA alone as well as in conjunction with the public agencies and private players. The said programs, Honorable Speaker, include the following, each with the indicative number of persons accessed. Helpline call since inception, which has an estimated of calls of 50 to 100 per day. Direct treatment, NHIF support persons, direct treatment support, positive parenting campaigns, training and capacity building of ADA professionals, NYS direct counseling and brief interventions, outreaches and direct brief interventions, life skills programs in schools, training of prison wardens on assessment and brief interventions, prisoners, inspection and accreditation on inpatient treatment and rehabilitation facilities, and from regions which are more than 230 people who are engaged. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, Section 5E of NACADA Act 2012 gives NACADA the power to, in conjunction with other lead agencies, provide and facilitate the development and operation of rehabilitation facilities, programs, and standards for the persons with SUDs. Section 5K of the Act empowers the authority to carry out such other roles necessary for the implementation of the objects and purpose of the Act and perform such other functions as may be, from time to time, be assigned by the Cabinet Secretary. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Undo, you had looked at the response.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I looked at the response, and I must commend the committee for a fairly comprehensive response. It has laid bare the achievements and the shortcomings of NACADA. Many of us believed NACADA will play a central role on rehabilitation of persons addicted to drugs and alcohol. Honorable Speaker, since the commencement of COVID-19, this particular cases have exacerbated, and it's important NACADA does much as it can to help sure how we rehabilitate as many people as possible. It is fairly telling, Honorable Speaker, that since they started the program in around 2015, they have only rehabilitated 193 persons. Yet we have about 4,000, close to 4 million Kenyans who are under drug abuse and alcohol addiction. Probably in the near future, and I hope the chair is listening, unfortunately is being distracted by the member of Kikuyu, and I would want him to listen. Honorable Speaker, I would suggest probably as a recommendation the committee can pick up is as indeed cleared in the mandate of NACADA, is it possible they can partner with the various private rehabilitation facilities in the country so that they support them either financially, technically, so that we can get as many people as possible in rehabilitation centers. The few that are being supported by the county government and the main one in Miritini is just a drop in the ocean, given the number of people who are affected. Many members of parliament here can tell you horrifying stories of how many people in their constituencies that have been rendered zombies because of excess drinking and drug abuse, especially Bang, where I come from, and where one of the speakers come from, as I pass there, plus heroin and other narcotic drugs in the coast region. It is a problem that we cannot wash under the carpet. It's not a problem we can wish away. We do believe and trust. This is the time for the intervention that is likely, that's required, especially among the youths and especially among the men of certain age and category. And all of us know the harmful impact of drugs and excessive alcohol consumption. Many years back, the classrooms in Murang'a County were empty. There were no children. But I'm told now the numbers have started increasing after they did importation from people from all over the place. We don't want the same kind of thing to be replicated in other places. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. I think it's going to import, isn't it? Yes. Next order. As long as we also we learn to live within our borders. Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Report of a committee of the whole House on the President's reservation to the Refugees Bill, National Assembly Bill number 62 of 2009. Question to be put.
Order members, debate on this motion was concluded by the committee of the whole House. So what remains is a question to be put, which I hereby do, that this House do agree with the report of the committee of the whole House on its consideration of the President's reservations to the Refugees Bill, National Assembly Bill number 62 of 2019. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. No.
Order number 9, motion. Report of a committee of the whole House on the Tax Appeals Tribunal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2021. Question to be put and third reading.
Well, again, I put the question, which is that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Tax Appeals Tribunal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2021. Will as many as that opinion say aye? As many as contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Honorable Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Tax Appeals Tribunal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2021, be now read a third time. Honorable Speaker, I want to specifically thank the Committee on Finance and Planning for the work they did in carrying out the necessary public participation, processing of this bill, and the various amendments that they brought yesterday as part of enriching this bill. And all members of the House who really stayed with us yesterday and who have been through the process of the development of this bill. And I know it marks, a turning point in the way the tribunals work. This is the first time we actually now putting into migrating the tribunals from Treasury to the judiciary. And I'm sure it's something we'll see the workings of that committee. It's a test case until all the other tribunals that are currently domiciled elsewhere, we will then find the rightful place in line with the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, I really don't want to say much. I want to beg to move, and I will request the Honorable Kaluma to second.
Honorable Kaluma.
Honorable Speaker, I second.
Well, honourable members, I propose a question, which is that the Tax Appeals Tribunal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2021, be now read a third time. I put the question, which is that the Tax Appeals Tribunal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2021, be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? As many or contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Tax Appeals Tribunal Act 2013 and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 39 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act.
Next.
Order number 11, the Landlord and Tenant Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2021. Resumption of debate.
Sorry, Honorable Otiende Molo, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to get your guidance, given your prior rulings, that on any bill or any motion, if there's a matter of constitutionality, it can be raised at any stage. I did have a matter of constitutionality on the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Bill, and I wondered if I could raise it at this stage or we await the second reading.
I think since it is read, a procedural bill is read for the first time without question put, let it go to the committee and before commencement of second reading, then you can raise those constitutional issues.
Stand guided, Mr. Speaker.
All right. On the Landlord and Tenant Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2021, the Honorable Shadrach Mose was contributing at the time the House rose yesterday, and he has a balance of 7 minutes. The Honorable Shadrach Mose, if he's in the House, member is absent, not desiring to be present, therefore he loses his right to his 7 minutes, and any other member is at liberty to contribute. I'm assuming that all the members that have indicated here want to contribute. But let me also indicate that the members who have spoken to this motion. And this is a motion on ratification of the agreement amending the air transport agreement between Kenya and the United States of America. The report of the committee, which report was moved by the leader of the majority party, seconded by the chair of the committee, the Honorable Kosing. What? Sorry, the one on the, sorry, this is the debate on the landlord and tenant. Yes, sorry. The following members have contributed. This is the Honorable Tonui Kiprotich, the Honorable Makali Mulu, the Honorable Ngugi Duati, the Honorable Maanzo, the Honorable Mili Odhiambo, the Honorable Oscar Nabulindo, the Honorable Mwangi Mburu, the Honorable Atanas Munyinyi, and the Honorable Mose. So any other member, my assumption is that the ones that have indicated that they want to do, yes, what's your point of honor, Honorable Undo?
Speaker, I'm not worried probably give you a point of information, but yesterday afternoon or evening, quite a number of us had spoken on the matter, and actually Honorable Mose finished his contribution, and I remember the last member of parliament to contribute was Mheshimiwa Kairaho, just probably so that we don't have a confusion. Having been in the House yesterday, I'm duty bound to basically point out what happened. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You're actually right, Honorable Undo. The Honorable Mose contributed, followed by yourself, and then Honorable Kerao Juguna. And he also finished because he's shown to have begun contributing as 1851. I think part of the record here is not correct. So the other members who want to contribute to this, I can see on top of the list, because there's no real need for me to go through otherwise than through the list, is the Honorable Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Because, Honorable Speaker, the Landlord and Tenant Bill, National Assembly, Bill number 3 of 2021, is a very important bill and timely to be in front of this House, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, remember, we have to protect our tenants as well as protect the landlords who are our investors, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the wheel of our economy can be moved if there is a good relationship between landlords and tenants. Honorable Speaker, because in some electoral circles we have seen leaders raising temperatures and emotions of their constituents so that they can be elected, telling them that they can stay in other people's investments without paying, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in 2007, we witnessed massive boycott of payment of rents, Honorable Speaker, by tenants who have been paying promptly their rents, Honorable Speaker, courtesy of some political statement. So, Honorable Speaker, this bill have come at the right time so that we can warn politicians that they can do their politics, but let them not do politics on citizen properties, Honorable Speaker. Let us respect the tenants, let us respect the investors in equal measures. Honorable Speaker, and you know our system is an open market, where, Honorable Speaker, it is the demand and supply curve that determine the prices, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I do support this bill, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to protect our tenant as well as our landlords, and we make sure that our country grow, because the more we protect, especially the landlords, Honorable Speaker, we can be able to attract more investors into this country. And any investment come with employment and tax payment, which move the wheels of our economy. I do support, Honorable Speaker.
Member Voseme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity to contribute to this. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, the object of the bill is to actually provide a framework to balance the interest of landlords and tenants in a free market economy. Mr. Speaker, this is an area where, to a large extent, the tenants have really suffered. Whereas it is the right of the landlords to invest and get returns for their investments, it is equally the rights of tenants to enjoy peaceful habitation. However, Mr. Speaker, that has not been so, and there has been a tendency overall that as much as landlords have been complaining of lack of payments, but I think the suffering of tenants have been great. This bill, therefore, comes at the correct time, and it brings together all the acts, the three of them, that were scattered, and therefore made it difficult for the landlords and the tenants to cohabit, to live together and within the law. And therefore, I support this bill because that is exactly what we need to protect either side. We are aware that renting premises is actually the biggest part of real estate, and that is how investors get their money back. It is therefore important that that is also protected. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill because it establishes a tribunal for both the landlord and the tenants. And it provides the structure, I've looked at the structure, an extremely competent structure and a completely comprehensive structure that will take care of that. And it provides for how you will manage all the aspects, the rents, the evictions if they are area, termination of tenancy. All these are actually taken care of, Mr. Speaker, and it even provides and actually enforces even tenants to keep fairly good details of records that they need. And, Mr. Speaker, it also provides the processes. If somebody is to be evicted, it gives clear guidelines on how and after what processes somebody is evicted. If there is an appeal, it gives clearly where, how, and the appeals are made. And those come out very clearly. Mr. Speaker, what I really like again about this bill is the clarity of the definitions. When it comes to tenancy, it clearly says whether it is a composite tenancy, whether it is service charge tenancy, all those are taken care of. And when it comes to rent, it is quite clear. It says the rent, what type of rent we are talking about. Fair rent is defined. What is a fair rent? It takes into consideration the environment in which the premises are, whether it is a premises, a domestic premise, or it is a business premise. All those come out very clearly. And, Mr. Speaker, it also brings a clear distinction, which probably we'll have to look into, the house and the land on which it stays. Because for a long time, actually, I believe that once there is a development on the land, it's basically the same. But it gives a clear distinction on how the land can be used even when the house is rented. So, Mr. Speaker, the tribunal itself is very well constituted, and if you look at the membership and the fact that in line with all the other things that we are been discussing, or the processes that we are on now, it is under the judiciary, and the membership is picked through the judiciary system, and therefore I think it is legally sound. Under clause 15, for example, the tribunal is allowed to take up matters even without complaints. One does not have to complain. If the tribunal has information that certain things are going on, they can take up those matters. And it has the power to summon all the parties. So, Mr. Speaker, I find this bill is going to take us a long way. It's going to protect the tenants, and it's going to make sure that the landlords receive their investment, returns from their investment as they intended. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill.
Member for Bomachoge Borabu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me opportunity to contribute to this bill. Honorable Speakers, I want to start by saying that if there is an industry that has been very messy, it's the industry of housing, especially in the urban areas. So, Speaker, I want to say that a country that prospers is a country that cares for its people. We are now talking of a framework with the clear policy guidelines and also engagement between the landlord and also the tenants. I stand to support this bill, Mr. Speaker, on the grounds that where there is order, we expect more prosperity. We expect more respect, we expect joy, both between the tenant and also the landlord. The Speaker, the only thing that gives me pleasure in this bill is the fact that the cartels that normally engage tenants on behalf of the landlord, their roles have been mobbed out. And the way the landlord and also the tenants have to engage has been spelled out clearly within the framework. And this Honorable Speaker makes it really encouraging for people to think of not owning houses because their rights are protected. We can see now more people encouraging rental premises. This will not only grow the economy, but it will also reduce the level of disorderly settlements that we see in the countryside. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in this bill, the tenant has their rights well spelled out, and also the landlord has their rights spelled out. And what is more important also is that if the landlord is going to deal with the agent's role has also been spelled out. It has to be well written and also accessible to the tenants. In normal circumstances, we have been operating as a country full of cartels, and that has been very frustrating. So, Speaker, I therefore support this bill and look forward to see the country having a tenant and landlord relationship improved. Thank you very much.
Member for Arienda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill. I have carefully looked at it, and it resolves very gray areas in law. First of all, Mr. Speaker, it seeks to consolidate 3 different prior pieces of legislation, each which sought to have a parallel regime, and it rationalizes them into one act of parliament. Mr. Speaker, this bill carefully balances the rights and obligations both of the tenant and of the landlord. We have had situations where landlords would mistreat tenants and there would be no proper protection. But similarly, there were also situations where tenants would mistreat landlords using the provisions of the law. This bill now seeks to balance those two areas very carefully. One particular area in which it does is where it proposes in section 69, that even where a landlord wants to demolish or repair premises, then they must give notice. Previously, one of the ways the landlords would deal with tenants who they wanted to evict is instead of trying to evict them, they would just come and remove the doors and remove the windows or remove the roofs under the guise of doing repairs. Mr. Speaker, before there was some sort of confusion in terms of the tribunals dealing with residential premises and those dealing with business premises, each of which had a separate jurisdiction and each of which sometimes had different standards. This bill now seeks to rationalize into a tribunal that is appointed through the Judicial Service Commission and clearly sets out the qualifications. Mr. Speaker, it speaks to the fairness in terms of rent. If there's a dispute as to whether the rent that is being sought by the landlord is fair or not, it sets the perimeters of determining the market rent. Mr. Speaker, I also find that it does something very fundamental. Previously, the Business Rent Tribunal and the Rent Restriction Tribunal did not have the full jurisdiction that most courts would have. And in that respect, sometimes they would not have the right to give injunctions. They would not even reinstate a tenant who was wrongfully evicted. But this bill now gives them that power. If a landlord wrongfully evicts a tenant, they can be reinstated. Or even if it is necessary to grant an injunction, then they can do so like any other court of law. Mr. Speaker, I fully support the bill. Thank you very much.
Member for Chirangan. Member for Chirangan. Oh, is it? But I need somebody to. Is there any other person desirous of contributing to this? Honorable Rasso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill. I want to appreciate that this bill is about the progressive nature of our law, that the laws of this country, if it keeps with the time, then we all appreciate it. Because for those who are property owners, if you have a house and tenants are living in, actually you will find that this bill is very important. Also for those who are tenants in people's houses, when they read this bill, they find that there are red lines for both the landlord and the tenant. Honorable Speaker, why am I saying this? The landlord will put up properties, borrowing money from the bank or from wherever, so that they invest. And when they are going to have tenants, they would expect that the tenants are going to pay so that the banks are paid, or the guarantees of those loans are going to be paid in time. What has happened over time is people have used the law very mischievously, that the tenant will go to the court and say that they have not paid the rent maybe for 6 months, but for now they can pay 3 months. And this, to an extent, it really disadvantages the landlord. At the same time, or in the same breath, when the landlord finds that the tenant, maybe they have been bereaved, they are not able to pay their bills in time, then they take austerity measures, which Honorable MP for Rarieda just talked about, that people use the law in a very mischievous way to undermine the rights of the landlord or the tenant. This bill is timely. It has come at the right time. And I think we will be able to learn a lot about it so that going forward, the property owners or those who actually hire properties are not disadvantaged because the law protects them. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
Kipruto Moi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this landlord-tenant bill. It's a very important bill, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, this bill was brought to the National Assembly so that the three laws that govern issues to do with landlord and tenants can be fused into one single law, Mr. Speaker. You have this law currently that are in operation is the RRA, which is the Rent Restricted Act. Then you have the DRA, which is the Distress Rent Act. And then the LTA, the Landlord Tenant Act, Mr. Speaker. So this bill aims to fuse these three laws, Mr. Speaker, into one single new law, Mr. Speaker. And this is intended to protect both the landlord and the tenant, Mr. Speaker. Some of the highlights of this bill, Mr. Speaker, have to do with rent payable, and it shall be determined by mutual agreement between the landlord and the tenant. And the bill also, in Section 18, Mr. Speaker, highlights the procedure that could be used to increase or decrease rents, Mr. Speaker. The landlord, Mr. Speaker, must issue a written notice 3